Okay, hello, my name is XK. You probably know me from the Discord as XKCD. I go under there. I'm also on the subreddit, also XKCD something or another. And you'll see me on the Twitter. I've got an old handle there called DJ Cluster, where I tweet on the Twitter. Just let me mute that. So first I want to thank Amanda and Pete for putting on this Dash retreat. I think it's been really awesome. I've watched a lot of the talks so far and just been really impressed with the level of content, how well the retreat has gone basically, and just the sense of community that this is creating. So it's really good to see. And I look forward to more such events, particularly one coming up in Asia, hopefully next year following the launch of Evolution. Today's talk is about Masternodes over TOR, and I want to make the case as for why we should investigate this, what benefits it can give to us, and see what we can do about making the privacy of the, particularly the Masternodes, stronger. Okay, so just to define the problem space initially, here's the sensationalist headline: Masternode privacy is compromised. Okay, so what this is referring to is that to host a Masternode online in the Dash network, you need to attain an IP4 address, and those things tend to have a very big privacy concern there because they can be, you can use reverse DNS to find out who they are, where they're at, what services they're on, and then governments, for example, could try to shut down the host or things like that. It's just basically you're in the open, and it's not really great for privacy. In fact, when we were going towards the deterministic masternode list, I remember Demo was really outspoken on this topic and saying that it was a terrible idea. But back then, it wasn't such a concern as it is now, because obviously with the things that are happening in the US and the aggression towards cryptocurrencies and towards privacy, like what we saw happen to Tornado Cash, I think this is becoming more of a issue these days. So the P2P network data is not encrypted. This may surprise a lot of people, and what I mean by this is when you open up your Dash wallet or even a Bitcoin wallet and you connect to the network, the ISP can see all the traffic that's going across the network there. So they know that you're connecting to a Bitcoin network, and they can even see the transactions that you're posting. So this may surprise you. None of that is encrypted. It's all in the clear. And anyone that can sniff the traffic that you're sending over the network can see that you're operating on these networks. Now, this isn't an issue because they can't spend your coins or they can't interfere with your transactions in any way. But it's definitely a privacy issue to know that the people between you and the nodes that you're connecting with, the network basically, can intercept those transactions and see what you're doing. So I think that's a massive problem, and the Masternode is no exception to that. Everything that the Masternode does is also unencrypted and being sent on the internet in plain text for anyone to intercept and eavesdrop on, including the service provider, the VPS host. Since the introduction of the deterministic masternodes, we're now mining the IPv4 IPs onto the blockchain directly. And this is different to what we had before then, where it was just in the so-called mempool space, like the P2P layer. Now that we mine into blockchain directly, if you've ever run a masternode, there is a history of that IP in the mining of the blockchain against which collateral it was, the payout address, the voting address. And so retrospectively, someone ever find out that you're on certain IP in a certain date range, then they can definitely prove that, that masternode was there. And it's all in the blockchain. It's immutable. That's the whole point of a blockchain. But in this case, it does us no favors. Like, it's really not a great thing that your IPv4 is being mined to a blockchain. Another issue that we've got is platform, probably a lot of people don't know because obviously we're not live on platform yet, but platform will be using SSL certs, which stands for Secure Socket Layer, but more recently it's referred to TLS, which is Transport Layer Security Certificates. And we need these certificates in order to allow the browser to trust when it's talking to a masternode, because it has to go over HTTPS. The issue here is that to get a certificate, SSL or TLS certificate, you have to appeal to a central authority to do that. And there's like maybe a few thousand issuing authorities, and I've listed the one here, which Dashcore decided to go with, which is Zero SSL. Now, what happens then is we will actually go to this provider. I think it's going to be automated. Usually you need to at least provide some personal information, but I think the way DCG is doing it, it's going to be automated, so you won't have to provide any information, hopefully, I'm not sure. And they'll issue an SSL cert. The problem here is that as an attack vector onto platform and the masternode network, some government could basically go to a determinate masternode list and look at all the evolution nodes. Like at the moment, we've got 73 of them, and say, okay, for these IPs, they could go back to this provider, Zero SSL or whoever, and say, revoke all those TLS certificates, because they can be revoked. And if they were to do that, then effectively that would bring platform down. So this could happen, for example, again, going back to the OFAC sanctioning the Tornado Cash smart contract. As part of that, MetaMask reduced or removed access to the contract. Infura stopped providing access to the contract as well. So even if you didn't use MetaMask and use something else, then Infura was blocking you. And the website was shut down. The GitHub was shut down, as far as I know. So like they went to every length to shut it down. If platform was ever in the same situation, then you would expect that this would be one thing, one avenue of attack onto platform, and that would be really bad for us. So we really want to avoid this. I've spoken to Quantum Explorer about this, and I've said this is a really bad system, but it's the one that we've got at the moment. Maybe we can do better. We'll see. So continuing on with the problem, the masternode owners are soft targets. And what I mean by that is that they're kind of vulnerable. You're running this masternode thing. It supports chain locks, instant send. It'll run platform services. And on there, there's likely going to be who knows what kind of data. Like refer back to Quantum's talk yesterday, where I was talking about what kind of data we might store there, and potentially how we might deal with data that we don't want to store there. It's potentially bad data. So because they're soft targets with the IP address, like any government or state agency could look up the IP address, go back to a service provider, find out who it is, and shut that node down, or potentially pursue them criminally. So we definitely don't want that. That would be a horrible environment, and particularly with evolution coming up, it'd be good to make sure that doesn't happen. Now, to be clear, I don't think that's a real possibility. It's an outside possibility, but still needs to be considered. So ultimately, this is poor privacy for people accessing a masternode and those services, because they too will be transacting with a masternode and the evolution, all in plain text in the clear. Their data itself is encrypted, so it can't be forged, it can't be double spent or anything. But people will definitely be able to see, if they're looking at the traffic on the wire, what's going back and forth on the network, and that is an issue. So this is not censorship resistant, as I mentioned, because ISPs or governments may block the access to the network and potentially put masternodes offline. So that would be in the worst case scenario. So enter TOR. Here's a slide to show you what TOR is, and it's a global network of computers that routes traffic through various relays to obfuscate and hide the destination of the traffic. So what it's doing is it's basically encrypting traffic at your end before sending anything onto the internet. And it sends it to a server, then that server forwards it on to another server, and then forwards it on to another server, and eventually gets to its destination. And each server that forwards it on doesn't know about the previous server that it came from. So there's a level of blinding built into this, the way this network works, so that you can't readily trace the route between you and the destination. It provides anonymity because of that, because you don't know who's sending the data, where it's coming from, or where it's going to. So it's going to give you that level of anonymity, and it encrypts all the traffic by default. So that's a massive benefit there. If someone is snooping on your internet traffic to see what you're sending, they'll know you've connected to TOR, but they won't necessarily know that you're connected to the Dash network, for example, or what you're doing on the Dash network. So that's definitely an advantage. And it doesn't use IPv4 for addressing or routing. Here's an example from the MNO Watch website. It uses these really long and obscure so-called onion addresses. So that means that Masternodes would have an onion address similar to this, and the network would then, like the mobile clients, would connect directly to this onion address. And in the picture there, it's just showing you the machines, and I've got two Dash Masternodes on there, and they're basically hiding in this cloud of onion routers. And really, if it's done well and done properly, then no one really knows where anything is or who's connecting or communicating with who. It's secret. So very good advantage there. Looking at the pros, the benefits. So obviously the user traffic is encrypted by default. That's really important. The IPv4 address of the masternode is hidden. So we're replacing that IPv4 address, like 192.168.whatever with the long-winded onion address. And those things can be generated at a whim. Like you generate a random one, just like you do a public key in your Dash wallet. You generate it at random, and then you just say that's my address, and then you just tell the world about it, and it's done. So very anonymous. The traffic's encrypted by default, you said that, and it doesn't require any SSL or TLS certs. And this is important for platform because with the encryption already being there, and with the browsers connecting via Tor, already trusting the network because it's encrypted, you don't need to have these certificates. You don't need to appeal to a centralized authority. And also there's no one that can attack you by revoking those certificates. So that's a big win, I reckon, as well. The masternode privacy is improved because we're not storing those IPv4s. And I put this dubious point at the end there, leading to better decisions in the DAO. Like sometimes I wonder if the way that the masternodes vote in the DAO is because they're worried about any repercussions on themselves or price, or the network being attacked by state agencies, like particularly around privacy. So recently we've seen two privacy proposals fail, which was the rebranding of the private send from CoinJoin and to bring privacy to the mobile wallet. And I just wonder, like, how much of that is MNOs expressing their concern that they're feeling exposed on the network? Would they be more brazen or, in my opinion, make better decisions if they felt more shielded from particular, authorities out there? So I don't know. It's a dubious thing. You can decide for yourself what you think about that. Okay, onto the cons. So all the wallets would need to upgrade, and by upgrade I mean like they're going to need to communicate with different networks. So they're going to need like normally the Onion client set up to offer the TOR service, and then to connect to that by default. So it is a big change that all bots would need to do, but as I'll show you later, it's probably we're probably closer to being there than not. The second major issue that I see is that the network would be slower, and that's just the nature of the beast. If you ever browse on the TOR websites, you'll find that dreadfully slow, and that's because it's going through all these additional hops to obfuscate the traffic and make it, basically all mixed up with everything else that you don't know where it's going. So that introduces a lot of delay, and probably my very rough ballpark estimates is that instant send may be up to 10 seconds to get a instant send lock. Now this needs to be tested, but it's something that we've got to prepare for. Like, for sure, instant send is going to take longer than it does now. There's no doubt about that. How much longer? Well, we'll have to find out. The third major issue that I see is any potential outages of TOR. Well, that would then essentially be an outage of the Dash network, which would be horrible. We've kind of got a similar risk at the moment, where if the internet ever went down, then the Dash network would also go down. But this would really concentrate it, that if the TOR network went down, we'd be dependent on that, so we'd be out as well. So that's definitely something to consider. To my experience, TOR doesn't have outages that are like global, worldwide. Sites get DDoS at various times, but the TOR network itself generally always continues. So, I don't think it's a big issue, but needs to be mentioned. So you may or may not know that TOR is already in Dash, and that is that with the full nodes, you've got the option of providing TOR services, and you can do that in the dash.conf file. And here I've got a picture of a core wallet where I've opened up the Peers tab, and you'll see that it's probably a bit fuzzy on the screen, but you'll see that it's just connected to all these onion routers, all these TOR nodes, and they're all Dash nodes. So the person that will be participating on this wallet and sending transactions would be comfortable to know that no one can snoop on their transactions. No one knows they're connecting to Dash. No one knows how much Dash they're sending or to who. It's all private. So this is already available today. The catch is, however, that it's only between regular nodes, so your wallet and a regular full node, and the Masternode services are not presented over TOR. So if you go and do some mixing, and even though you've got your wallet connected to TOR, it's still going to do the mixing on the IPv4 addresses, because we haven't enabled TOR on Masternodes. Here's another slide. So if you search on the forum with the keyword onion, I know it's a bit counterintuitive, but there's no good way to search on a forum. The search is really horrible. There's a guide called How to TOR by XKCD, which is me. I wrote the guide, and it explains to you how you can today at least get your core wallet to connect to TOR nodes, and that way improve your privacy today, even though it's not going to be for mixing. Recently, I'm not sure how clear it is, but the Stack wallet has announced that they're also providing TOR support as part of their most recent upgrade that happened just last week. And from what I can tell, there's a pull request as well for the Stack wallet, which is a multi-coin wallet, to support Dash. So it sounds like there is some traction for this in the space, and I can't vouch for how good this wallet is or how safe it is, but it's worth checking out. So, they claim to be non-custodial, and they're offering TOR as well. So definitely, if you're privacy minded, this is a wallet to check out. And the great thing about this one is that it is a mobile wallet, so that's going to work for iOS and Android. If nothing else, it's a proof of concept that for the Dash Core mobile wallets, we can definitely include TOR in that as well. So it's just something to think about. The next steps. So The next step would be to create a pull request, which is just a way how you submit a code change to the Dash Pay repository. And that pull request is going to have the details there of like how to modify the code so that instead of mining the IPv4 address to the blockchain, we actually mine the onion address. So it's not a lot of code. I've displayed at the bottom there some code that may actually do it, may work. It's not a lot of lines. And apart from this, there's spot bits of updates in the rest of the code to make it work, but it should be pretty simple. Once that pull request is done, we would do a build, and DCG has got some really good tools for being able to deploy little devnets, they call it. And so it wouldn't be very hard at all for them to run the devnet and actually just test it, see how the performance is, see how it works, iron out any bugs, and just try it to see if it's going to work at all. What we want to do is we want to gauge for network performance specifically, see how long instancing takes, see how quorums are affected, are they being created properly, and yeah, and just things like that. If that was successful and we decided through probably some kind of network vote to make this change to the network, then what we would want to do is to create some kind of a hard fork, and that would be more tricky as far as the code goes, because you're going to have to, rather than start the whole network from using TOR in the first instance, you're going to need to have a period of time where there's some masternodes that have upgraded to the IPv4 and some that haven't, and have that sort of phased in approach, and then I guess have some kind of cutover, probably with a spork, where you flick the switch and say, okay, well, now if a masternode hasn't registered a onion address, then they'll progressively start to get banned. Small code, but very easy to do. We've got devs that are totally skilled to do this, and it'll be just rolled out as another upgrade with perhaps a few more steps to install it, because what you will need to do is, for a masternode owner, is to also install the TOR service, and that's almost as simple as like the sudo apt install TOR. So it's not terribly hard. Until then, if you're at all alarmed by some of the privacy issues I've mentioned on the first slides, there are some things you can do to increase your privacy if you're not doing them already. I don't necessarily suggest that you do that or break your terms of service, but if the service provider isn't doing like a formal KYC, which we're generally not, they ask you for your name and address. You don't necessarily have to give them your exact name and address. If you're paying with for a service, prefer the ones that allow you to pay with crypto. So that's like, from memory, Voltura does, coins.host do, and another one called Hostwind. It's not always going to be the cheapest, but it's a trade-off, isn't it? How much you're willing to pay and how much you value your privacy. When accessing your masternode and the front end, generally use a VPN so that they're not tying your home address, your home IP address, to accessing the masternode. So you kind of create that that gap between the two. So if sometime down the future we lived in a more tyrannical world where running a masternode was frowned upon, well, you're not directly tied to it, so that'll be better. Then a few more general privacy concerns is like, never reuse a dash address. They should be a one-time only thing, so shout out to one time. Always mix your dash. So when you're creating a masternode, mix it. When you're taking a masternode down, mix it. You want to avoid any kind of tracing or linking or blockchain analysis. You don't want to appear on a MNO watch page, because if you're appearing there, then you'd be on chain analysis reports and whatnot as well. Like, it's just a foregone conclusion. And never combine inputs from two different addresses. So if you've got two masternodes, for example, and you want to mix those payouts, don't send them to the mixing wallet together in the same transaction. Ideally, have the payout addresses already in the mixing wallet, because when you turn on mixing, it will never combine the inputs of two addresses. So it'll protect your privacy there. That's probably it. So I've seen some messages pop up, but I think it'll be a good time to ask or answer some questions if anyone's got any. So I guess, Pete, you can probably help with that.
Sure, good job. Good job, XK. I'm just going to display some questions on the screen that were received from the internet audience. Good job.
So what is the difference between the SSH tunneling, like party users, for example? It's going to encrypt the traffic, so people won't see what's going over the network there, but it's not going to obfuscate who's talking to who, and potentially that you are talking to a masternode, because, for example, if you're connecting on port 999 or 9999, that's a well-known port for a Dash masternode, but it's very good. It will help you with for privacy. The problem is that masternodes aren't set up to work that way, and anyone needs to be able to connect to a masternode in order to do like a coin join session or download the blockchain or something like that. So it's not going to be a solution that's going to work for the whole network, but it definitely helps for the privacy. Okay, so questions from Amanda. I've never really trusted the TOR network because nodes don't get paid, so I assume that well-funded bad actors own many. Yeah, for sure, there's probably a lot of nodes that are run by nefarious actors, particularly exit nodes. And so an exit node is where you, for example, let's say I'm going to a website, dash.org, and I do it through Tor. So I'll send the address to my Tor browser, and it's going to hop through, 3 onion servers. And then the final one is an exit node, and it's going to then send my traffic onto the internet from some different IP address, similar to like what a VPN does. And typically, well, those ones may be compromised. Some of them may be run by governments. So the difference here about what I'm suggesting is when you run as a Tor hidden service and you have an onion address, you actually never hit an exit node. You never leave the onion network. And so because of that, you're not exposed to potentially people sniffing the traffic to see what websites you're going, or to see if you're changing your Dash address with a Bitcoin address or whatever, some crazy stuff like that. They're not doing that. So that's going to be a big advantage initially. It's also very easy to run a relay node. Like I've run a couple on Voltaire. They're less risky because, again, they don't give people access to get off onto the regular internet. They're just staying hidden within this bunch of onion nodes. So I think it's a valid concern, but to date, it seems to be one of the best technologies we've got for hiding ourselves on the internet. So is Tor a protocol? Could a masternode network just run their own version like Tor Dash? Yes, but I don't know how secure that would be if it's just us. So I think that the story of how Tor started was that it was a government initiative, and they gave it to the world. And they soon realized that if it's only the government that's using Tor, then obviously all that traffic is going to be highly sensitive, and you're going to know that it's governments aren't interacting. So the point of them releasing it to the world was to make sure that they could then mix and hide in plain sight. all different people are using it for different reasons, which means that then you can never know, well, who's a government agent, who's a private citizen, who's, anything. If we created a Tor network specifically just for Dash, then anyone looking at that, even though they can't decrypt the traffic, they'll still know that you're communicating the Dash network, and we actually don't want that at all. So if we use the regular Tor network, then when you make that connection, they're not even going to know that you're connecting to the Dash network. They might think that you're going to like dash.org, some other website, or a darknet market, anything, not necessarily Dash. So that's an advantage of just sort of mixing in with everybody else. So Tor queries are sometimes slower, much slower resolved, and it doesn't speak about potential performance trade-offs. There would be potential performance trade-offs for sure. Like I mentioned, instant send would be probably 10 seconds to get an instant send confirmation. That's a long time if you're waiting in store to spend your Dash. But after having instant send for how many years now, like 6 years or whatever, who actually uses instant send and who accepts it? What Exchange does, like what product does. Bitrefill do, but they're also not a service that you're going to use in store. So instant send is really poorly adopted. So if it's taking 10 seconds, to me, it doesn't really matter, because my use case, I think most of our use cases, isn't standing at the coffee shop, buying a cup of coffee with Dash and requiring instant send lock. So, but yeah, that's a valid concern. Okay, looks like a question from one time. Would it need to be the entire Masternode network using Tor, or could it just Evo nodes which still slow down the L1 transactions? So I think it would need to be the entire network, because if it's just some people, then you're going to have this bifurcation of a network where some people will be accessing through Tor, some people through IPv4, and that sounds to me like it would be a likely source of issues for the network. So I think we would have to basically go either one way or the other. Even with the Evo nodes, I wouldn't recommend having just them running over Tor and then the regular nodes over IPv4, because at the end of the day, an Evo node is also a normal masternode and provide normal masternode services. So it really should be like all or nothing. But it's something that the devs like Pastor could weigh in on as well and let us know. So we need to hear from them as well what they think. All right. Well, thanks everyone for listening to the talk, and happy Dash Retreat, and see you guys later.